Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. This is the Oneness Podcast. I am Jessica Delmar. In this episode, we're going to be talking about August Ascension Energy, and there's a lot that's been coming through. So we'll break it down. There are 3 themes of August that came through, and it all revolves around the throat chakra. So a lot of throat activations in August. In addition to that, there is the 8/8 portal coming up on August 8th. This is the Lion's Gate portal, and I'll be bringing through information regarding the 8/8 portal next week. So for this episode, again, 3 themes of August, and those 3 themes are truth, intention, and ascended mastery. And we'll get to all of that in a little bit. But first, I want to talk about some other information that's been coming through with this August Ascension Energy, and more so triggered by the August 1st full moon energy that is sort of setting us up for a lot of these energy activations coming through in August. So there was some interesting information that came through my August full moon newsletter. So if you're on my newsletter list, you may have received that information, and it has a lot to do with sort of a shift of perspective going on right now, especially regarding how we're connected to abundance and how our realities are showing us this sort of infinite abundance available for us if we can distinguish our now moment presence from the timelines that are playing out. And also what all of this has to do with the building of New Earth. And so it's essential to cultivate the now moment, because the now moment is where the threads, where we are threading New Earth, essentially. There is a higher timeline and there is a lower timeline evolving from our collective consciousness or collective perception, if you will. But the New Earth timeline doesn't necessarily build off of the higher timeline. The New Earth timeline is about the present now moment and our ability to see both the higher timeline and the lower timeline evolving and moving and being able to create based off of both, because the now moment is essentially what stitches the seams in between the past and the future, as well as in between the lower and higher timelines. And it creates something completely new. It creates from a sort of blank canvas rather than creating upon our past and our futures or upon our lower or higher timelines. It's something completely new. And it's about being more in a space of allowance in the now moment, enough to receive the energy of source and have that energy create through you in a way, not that so that you're not controlling how you want your desires to manifest for you, but rather you have the desire and you're allowing that greater source energy to move and create through you in alignment with your desire for highest potential. Because we can't necessarily create our highest potential from just our knowing. The New Earth experience is allowing for this greater source energy to move through us so that we can give rise to something that is within what we want as our highest potential, but that we can't even fathom enough in our self here to be able to create for ourselves. So we need this greater source energy to move through us and help create what we perceive to be our highest potential, but not in a way that we control how it comes about for us. And so there's simply this new perspective opening or shifting within a lot of us, and it has to do a lot with how we're receiving abundance at this time, and really taking into consideration how you're receiving abundance. Is it based off of your past or your future? Is it based off of what you're already seeing in the collective in terms of higher timelines or potentials and lower timelines and potentials? Meaning, when you step outside of it and you're able to observe everything, all of the timelines going on, you're going to see that there are higher timelines that you're exposed to. You're seeing it whether it's on social media, on TV, in your real life, you're seeing people thriving and being abundant. But at the same time, you might also be seeing the lower timelines where people you're seeing on the news, on social media, a lot of the fear mongering, or people talking about limitations, whether it's money, the housing market, jobs, whatever, right? People are talking about limitations or how the recession or whatever. So all of these things are playing out for us. And it's very important to notice how it's playing out for you specifically in your reality. So that's one of the things I want to talk about is sort of our timeline and the energy of August, what this is sort of opening and revealing for us. So our timeline. Again, there are two timelines, the lower timeline and the higher timeline. But when I was looking into it, it's very specific in terms of them not being separate. At some point, it did feel like oil and water, but right now, as I'm tuning into that energy, it's not separate like oil and water. It's more like fire and water, where they're not repelling against each other, but they can work together and they can invite each other in. And these two timelines are important because the lower and the higher timelines are separating aspects essentially, but now within a unifying field of consciousness. And so again, they're not necessarily like oil and water where they're repelling against each other. They have to invite each other in because they are wrapped up within this greater unifying field of consciousness, which has been breaking through and feels more solidifying. I think it has something to do with the 8-8 portal that is solidifying more of this greater unifying field of consciousness that is part of the split, because it's no longer within the divisive or the separating field of consciousness. We've risen out of it for those who are coming along with it. And so this message is for that realm of unifying field of consciousness where now, even within a unifying field of consciousness, there is a lower timeline and a higher timeline, like I was saying. But perspective is very, very different here. So again, it's more like fire and water. And specifically why it's like fire and water is because I was shown the vision of like lava meeting the ocean water and creating new earth, creating new land, essentially. And it's important to note that the focus here is the new land being birthed through the fire and the water meeting together. The focus is on the new land. And although we don't have any capability or capacity to even fathom what that new land looks like or is going to birth or create upon itself, what we do have control over is the fire and the water part, because that's where we are in our now moment, witnessing our higher timelines playing out, witnessing the lower timelines playing out, and being able to be in this now moment and be present with whatever is here for you, and working with that energy, working with the energy of the fire and the water and whatever it needs you to do in that moment in order for the new birthing to occur. And that new birthing is the new birthing of land masses. It's essentially the new birthing of new earth. So the now moment is about being present within that unifying field of consciousness. That's the now moment. And being able to witness both the lower and higher timelines within this unifying field of consciousness. So the question is, how do you unify the lower and higher timelines in order to create or birth these new land masses or this new earth experience? So essentially, the lower timeline and the higher timeline work together to show us how one impacts the other and how the other impacts the other. They are connected. They must both exist in order for the other to exist. It's kind of like that yin-yang symbol. And that exists within a unifying field of consciousness as well as within a separating field of consciousness. However, in a separating field of consciousness, the lower and higher timelines repel each other and they fight against each other and they push up against each other. They resist each other. Versus in a unifying field of consciousness, they work together, they merge together. We unify the two, higher and lower timelines by allowing Source to flow through us as the source of our well-being, even through the limitations of our world. So just because you see limitations going on in the world, or you see a lower timeline, or you see really bad things going on in the world, it does not mean that you can't be in the unifying state of consciousness or the unifying field of consciousness. You allow yourself to be within the unifying field of consciousness when you bring the lower timeline and the higher timeline together, meaning you allow Source to flow through you as the source of well-being, even through the limitations of our world. We must invite a deeper sense of presence and love within our now moment so that we are guided in each moment to sew the seams of what has split, meaning there's always going to be that split within a physical reality. We choose whether we want to unify it or we want to separate it. The split in timelines, the higher and lower timelines, needed to occur for us to see things clearly and redefine what we want to experience. New Earth is born from that split, and unification occurs through the now moment. Seek to find what you are looking for only from the now moment, and you will be guided towards the building of the new. However, seek to find what you are looking for from the past or the future, high or low timelines, and you will be guided towards the building of what is. So you always want to maintain your presence in the now moment, despite whether there are high or low timelines playing out, because your presence in the now moment determines your state of consciousness within that unifying field of consciousness. You know you go into the separating field of consciousness when you peel out of the now moment and you get caught up in past, future, or even in the high or low timelines. The other thing that's been coming through as we enter into August is divine masculine and divine feminine energy. And there is almost this complete shift within the creative energies of masculine and feminine. Almost as if north has become south and south has become north. There's a pole shift. There's a magnetic shift. And it's happening within a lot of different aspects of our reality, but this is one of the more significant ones, in addition to the timeline shift as well. But it's interesting because we can actually physically kind of see that shift of the masculine and feminine in genders kind of playing out. But what we have to understand is that on a much deeper level, it's not about gender. This is about pure energy and that magnetic shift of pure energy. So I want to talk about divine mother, divine feminine, and divine father, which is divine masculine. And what I've been noticing recently is I've been stuck in this heat wave. I was in Arizona for a few months. And so I experienced this intense heat wave. And when I was in Arizona and I was tuning into the sun in over 100 degrees, it spoke to me and I felt a very feminine energy. What used to be, if I connected with the sun, would be divine masculine energy, has now shifted into divine feminine energy when I connect with the sun. And the sun also feels a lot different as well. And so I tuned into that and I found it very interesting, where divine mother or divine feminine is now expressing through the energy of the sun, and divine father or divine masculine is now expressing through the energy of the moon. What came through is divine father is felt within the grounding energy of earth. So I'm also feeling divine masculine more pulling me towards the earth. And divine mother, divine feminine is felt more in the lifting energy towards the sky. This is occurring because a balancing is being made. The divine masculine must step back to allow the divine feminine to lift, rise, awaken, and shine. And this is an energy that is internally being pulled through the body from the deepest layers into the surface layers. The sun now has a feminine energy radiating through to penetrate into our creative centers and shift how we show up in the world. The moon now has a masculine energy reverberating through to provide knowledge and deep insight through our subconscious and unconscious layers and into our conscious layers so we may know ourselves better. So this shift feels, I don't want to say temporary, but I feel like it's serving a specific purpose of rebalancing the masculine and the feminine energies in order to take us somewhere that we need to go, and harness our divine masculine and our divine feminine in a way upon which we need it to be harnessed and balanced in this new direction that we're stepping into. So whether they shift their roles again, I'm not too sure, but this is what I'm feeling into right now. So let's talk about the 3 themes of August, which all revolve around the throat activations, the throat chakra. And these include truth, intention, and ascended mastery. So this moves us into the 8-8 portal and our ability to express ourselves, to speak our truth, to move with integrity, and to move with our inner truth is important in this next stage, especially with sort of these evolving energies and where it's kind of rolling us into. It's showing me like a wave, and we're just kind of like, the wave is like rolling along and we're like being caught up in the wave and where it's going. And so our ability to really harness that our throat at this specific time is important in terms of where we're headed. And these 3 things, truth, intention, and ascended mastery, is what came through. And I didn't really have a lot written down. I just kind of wanted to speak. And well, it probably has something to do with this activation of the truth of the throat chakra. And the guys were like, just talk, say what's on your mind instead of writing the information down like I do usually, and then I share what was written. And so it's probably their activation for me to open up that throat chakra and just kind of share and express myself and the first things that come to my mind. So regarding these 3 themes, the first was truth, and what came through is more truth being revealed about our 3D Earth simulation. So we know social media, the news, everything, there's a lot. We're exposed to so much information. And this can often be overwhelming for a lot of us to distinguish what truth is versus what's false. And there is definitely a reason why we're being bombarded with so much information. It is sort of acting in terms of the greater old earth, if you will, trying to maintain its grasp. It's trying to clamor up, or it's showing me like a hand around the throat. So it's trying to kind of suppress or keep our throats from fully opening. It's trying to kind of like stuff the food back into our mouth kind of thing. And this keeps a lot of people within that realm of disempowerment and within this space of not being able to identify what their truths are just because there's so much going around. And so this is such a powerful time to go back to simplifying and really sifting and sorting what is in your reality, what is showing itself to you directly, and not being so overwhelmed with everything out there. Just sit with what is being presented to you in your experience, and that will give you all the knowledge that you need to sift and sort what truths are trying to be integrated. Oftentimes what we do is we enter into a buffet, if you will, into a restaurant with a buffet, and we want to see everything in the buffet and we want to take in everything in the buffet. And they're just saying like, just work with what you want right now, with what you're craving right now, similar to what's in your environment right now, what's in your experience right now, what is being asked of you right now, what are you sitting with right now. That's all you need to be doing, and then things will start unfolding and unfolding and unfolding. And eventually you might unfold the entire buffet's experience. Great. But you don't need to know everything ahead of time. And so because we're being bombarded with so much information at this time, and there's the higher timeline and the lower timeline, all kind of spitting things out to us. And it's easy to get caught up in the higher timeline and the lower timelines, all that information, rather than just staying present and being in your now moment and being able to observe what's happening and being able to sift and sort based upon the inner feeling within you. So it's important to really remember to come back to center and come back to your present now moment. Remember that as human beings, we're not necessarily designed to be in control. However, in a separating consciousness field of consciousness, we bring in the element of control. But in a unifying field of consciousness, we can't bring in the element of control. We have to be in the element of surrender. In a unifying field of consciousness, as human beings, we're designed to be in allowance, in surrender. So this is really a time to trust your allowance. When you're in allowance, you are receptive to your environment. And when you're receptive to your environment, you're immediately in a state of knowing what feels true and what feels false, because you're coming from that inner state of being and feeling your environment, feeling, working with your greater senses, not to receive everything and try to figure everything out, but you're receiving information and you're tuning internally. And so you're immediately knowing what feels right and what doesn't feel right, what feels true and what doesn't feel true, what you need to be working with and what you don't need to be working with. When we try to avoid or even try to control, then we get caught up in all of the information coming to us. And the word coming through is information warfare. We get caught up in the information warfare, trying to stifle our throats, trying to shovel the food back into our mouth, right? To suppress the throat from trying to open. And this often causes more confusion. It causes more overwhelm. It causes more suffering. It causes so much more resistance in the body too. And so with all the information, especially like there's the information about the extraterrestrials, UFOs, aliens, all of that stuff, what feels like it's coming through in terms of August is really kind of an open door for more stuff to be revealed to us regarding our Earth simulation. And we have to understand that Earth itself, our experience as human beings, everything is a simulation. The world is an illusion, but our inner truth is what grants life to be birthed and experienced within this world of illusion. And so we have to be very careful of where we direct or redirect our inner truth to show up for us and to harness more of our experience for us. The second theme that came through is intention. So creativity, intention regarding creativity, right? Our intention to the things that we want to create. And August, especially that 8/8 portal, is sort of like the doorway for our intentions to become more grounded in the heart space, rather than intentions to be more of just thoughts or fleeting thoughts, especially ego thoughts. And so August is more about a grounding of our intentions into our heart. And so how we create starts to shift into something so much more differently. Again, this goes back into how the timelines, right, are all shifting. And when we're in that unifying field of consciousness, we can observe the higher timeline and the lower timelines playing out, and then create intentions from there, from our observations of the higher timeline and lower timelines. It's like we receive the information through our heart center, and in a unifying field of consciousness, we take that information in our heart center and then cultivate these heart-centered intentions for what we want to then create. Again, that's the birthing of something completely new once the lava reaches the water and it creates new land. It's about the new land. So our intentions are sort of the seeds of what can be created, of the new land that can be created. So there's more of an emphasis on intention rather than manifestation. It's like, be very pure in your intentions and understand where your intentions are coming from. Because if your intentions are coming from that compassionate place of building something completely new, and you're allowing through your state of allowance to have source move through you, then your state of intention is simply just an open doorway for source to create through you, and then create, manifest whatever it is in alignment with your intention, because you need to have that initial intention, the heart-centered intention. But how that actually comes to be within the environment, within your reality, is up to source. You give it up to source. You allow source to kind of be the headmaster, if you will, in terms of creating it. And again, this is because we're no longer in control. It's not like I have this intention and then I want it to manifest in this way. That's no longer how it works. It fully puts us into a place of pure potential. And if we can just surrender and allow that, then I think that we can be very surprised at how things manifest if we don't have so much control over it. And we allow that greater source to show us its truest potential, like our greatest potential that we can never fathom of just creating ourselves. And this all has to come from the heart. So that's the second thing. That's the second theme of August. The third theme of August, sort of opening the gates or opening the doorway, is ascended mastery. And what came through is, when you're in this place of everything that I've been talking about in this episode, you really open up the gates for you to connect with your spirit guidance, for you to connect with source in a whole new way, and to be experiencing clarity in a whole new way, and to feel guided and supported in a whole new way. And this is truly kind of walking through the gates of something. The words point of no return is coming through. So it's kind of like you're walking through the gates into a state of clarity that you had asked for quite some time. And everything that's going on, again, with the timelines and with the shift of divine feminine and divine masculine, it's all part of like welcoming you through these gates to experience your life in this whole new way. And is this the new earth experience? In many ways, it feels like the pathway, like I'm walking on the path of it. It's like I'm seeing a vision of like a beautiful mansion or a beautiful castle in front of me. It's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, how I'm seeing like that big palace in the distance, but I've entered into the movie. I've entered through the gates, and now I'm walking that yellow brick road. I'm walking on a road to get there. And of course, like we know from the movie Wizard of Oz, like the whole story basically is on the journey there to the palace, or the Palace of Oz, or whatever it's called. So we're kind of in that journey, whereas before it felt like we are outside of the gates, at least, or not even in the movie of the Wizard of Oz. So there's definitely that sense of point of no return for many people who are on that journey. But it has to do with a lot of it has to do with your now moment and being very present within all of these shifts and changes, these shifting perspectives, the shifts of the masculine and feminine, the shifts of the timelines, and the high timeline and the low timeline. So just keep that in mind. So Okay, so the other thing coming through is part of this theme of ascended mastery, going back to the theme, and even going back to the vision of the Wizard of Oz, and allowing more of your spirit guidance to come flowing through for you, experiencing guidance and support like you've never experienced before, and clarity in this whole new way is kind of like Dorothy having, the Tin Man, the lion, and the Scarecrow on her team. Like, she physically meets these guides on her path. And so you're going to be physically feeling the support and the guidance on your path now as you move forward. So they're saying, don't look for it, but just receive it. Just allow it. Just welcome it in. Embrace it. It's part of being in this unifying field of consciousness that you've agreed to be in at this moment. And again, like I was saying, within this unifying field of consciousness, there's still a high timeline and a low timeline. It's about now being in your now moment and observing it enough to understand that the high timeline and the low timeline are both there to show you what's possible and what you want to create, what you want to birth forth as the new earth experience, right? So keep that in mind. But anyway, guides will start coming along. You're going to start feeling your spirit guidance in more of a tangible way, in more of a clarifying way. I feel clarity. I feel it moving through me as my inner truth. I feel physical confirmations showing up, popping up for me. So stay open to it and be able to receive it and embrace it. As long as you are open to allowing and embracing, because you're in this field of unifying consciousness, then all things will start coming your way. All things will start moving in that unifying way for you, specifically for you. So that is what wants to come through for this August Ascension energy. It's a lot of information, and I feel like even more information is wanting to come through, which I will hope to break down in the next few weeks. I'll talk about the 8/8 portal next week. I just put out a newsletter about the August full moon on August 1st. So if you want to read that, head on over to my newsletter. I'll post a link to the newsletter in the description of this episode. You can sign up and receive all of my newsletters straight to your inbox. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all of your support. And I'll see you in the next episode. Oneness, love, and peace be with you.